In July of 2009, the online shopping website Amazon removed the books Animal Farm and 1984 from their platform. This is because the books were added to the store by a company that did not have the rights to sell them, according to an Amazon spokesperson. This is understandable, as even in the real world, things go out of print all the time, and what can and can't be sold does change. When it comes to copyright across countries, things can be even more complex, as different countries have different laws as to what can enter the public domain. This should have been where the story ended, but it didn't end there. This was only the beginning. Not only was the book removed from the Kindle store, but it was deleted from the Kindles of people who had legally purchased the books from Amazon. And this isn't the only example of Amazon deleting books from customers. People have reported that the books of Ayn Rand and Harry Potter novels have been randomly deleted from their libraries, usually because someone did not have the rights of said books managed to get past the ever-watchful eye of Amazon. However, in all cases, these books were legally purchased on the consumer side. The consumer had done nothing wrong. Early in April 2019, a digital game storefront, the Epic Games Store, had a bug. For 2 hours, the video game Detroit Become Human went free. To consumers, this was not an out-of-the-ordinary occurrence. Many games on Steam, the most popular digital game storefront, do have sales that can total in very high percentages. Some games even offer free weekends, and even Epic itself offered the video game Subnautica for free. However, as soon as the bug was fixed, the game was removed from the library of everyone who had obtained it through this bug. For context, the director of publishing strategy at Epic Games had stated something like this would not happen on his How Games Are Made podcast, stating that users would be able to keep bug purchases through the Epic Games Store if the bug was on their end, and in this case, the bug was on their end. When presented with this evidence, he stated that this policy does not relate to free copies. Unfortunately, according to the law, a $0 purchase is still considered a purchase. The games were taken back after what amounted to a legal purchase. In 2016, some users of Apple's iTunes have reported that music files saved on their computer were removed without their permission. People have begun to speculate that Apple Music was deliberately deleting these files and replacing them with DRM-laden copies. However, according to Apple, this was caused by a bug. These three examples may be described as accidents, but they showcase a very chilling reality. Digital distributors have showcased the power to be able to take away things that you have legally purchased. This has a wide array of implications, and it leads to very many questions. The most obvious and the most important one is this even legal? You've probably heard of this before, that you don't own what you purchase from digital distributors like Amazon or Apple. This is a physical DVD. If I buy it, I truly own it. I could do what I want with it, and that includes many different things that almost sound illegal. I can lend it out to a friend, I can legally make backups of what I purchased by ripping and burning it, I can't sell those backups, but I have the right to make backups of my own property, and I can sell the original DVD that I bought, and the seller of the DVD or the maker of anyone behind the DVD has no right to tell me that I can't, as per the United States first sale doctrine. As the story goes though, this doesn't apply to digital media. You don't really buy what you purchase on Steam, Amazon, iTunes, or other places you've probably heard. You may have heard that what you buy is a license to use them. In most cases, you'll find this software is licensed, not sold, somewhere in the EULA. However, this story is largely fictional. A EULA is not a law, but they are subjected to the laws. A corporation can put whatever they want into one, but if the end user license agreement has clauses that say the corporation may never be sued if you use this product no matter what happens, generally they will not hold up in court. And some things may also be completely unenforceable. In one notable example, GameStation obtained the souls of 750,000 people because they put that in their EULA, and people don't read the EULA. EULAs tend to be tools of intimidation, using language so dense that the average reader can't comprehend them, and worded in a way that makes it appear that the corporation has more power than they really do. I want to state that I am not a lawyer, but I have done a lot of research, and I'm going to help parse this in order to help prevent any myths and confusion. Here's the thing. When you buy a physical program on a disk, like Microsoft Windows, you will still get the same EULA. This software is licensed, not sold. This is one of those things that's made to sound more intimidating than it really is. Speaking of Orwell, this is a classic example of doublespeak. If you want an example of doublespeak, it's this software in this software is licensed, not sold. In this context, the software does not mean that the software you currently bought off of iTunes or Amazon or Steam or Microsoft. The software refers to the intellectual property of the software. In essence, you did not buy the rights to Microsoft Windows when you bought a copy of Microsoft Windows, so you can't really modify it and sell it. However, you do own that particular instance of Microsoft Windows, no matter where you bought it, online or offline, no matter what the end user license agreement says. The same idea applies to things that aren't technology. If you buy a Mickey Mouse t-shirt, you do not own Mickey Mouse, but you own that particular instance of Mickey Mouse and can sell that, lend it, or even burn it if you wanted to. That instance of Mickey Mouse has been licensed to you. Digital songs, video games, movies, books, they're all goods, not services. And places like the European Union have ruled that software, whether sold via license or not, whether digital or not, is a good and not a service, no matter what the EULA says. In 2016, Australia's High Court determined that video games bought through Steam are goods. Whoever buys a game from Steam becomes the owner of that particular instance of the software that they bought. Canada has also done the same. This issue has not gone to the United States Supreme Court as of writing, but it's fair to believe that if it did get that high, then the verdict would be synonymous with the rest of the world. In 2013, the United States Supreme Court did rule that people in the United States are entitled to resell their copyrighted goods without the copyright holder's permission in accordance with the first sale doctrine. So, why does this myth persist? I firmly believe that it's because digital distributors let it. It sounds strange, almost counterintuitive even. Wouldn't the idea that Amazon could take away any book or movie that you've ever purchased from them at a moment's notice without your consent make it less appealing to purchase from them in the first place? Well, maybe, if that company wasn't Amazon. Amazon in 2019 is nearly synonymous with online shopping, taking that title away from eBay. Between books, movies, clothes, music, video games, toys, technology, even groceries, it's easier to list what you couldn't buy from Amazon rather than the categories of things that you can. This is because Amazon has worked very, very hard to be the Walmart of the internet by employing Walmart's strategies. For years now, Amazon has undercut third-party sellers. They track third-party sales on their platform, and they use that data to sell the most popular items in direct competition with marketplace members. If you don't buy ebooks from Amazon, where exactly are you going to go to buy them? Especially if you want to put them on your Kindle. Where else are you going to shop? Amazon Prime itself has a wide array of content. This myth helps the big players a lot more than it hurts them. And it helps their competitors as well. Even if you were to buy an ebook from someone else, you'd probably be buying it under the same idea that the software would be licensed and not sold. If you were Amazon, would you want people to think that taking your copies of 1984 and Animal Farm were about on the same level of legality as Barnes & Noble breaking into your house and taking your physical copies of said books? Amazon was actually sued over deleting these books from people. They did offer a new free digital copy as well as a $30 voucher, so a class action wasn't likely. But a high school student and another consumer tried to take them to court. To prevent this from going to court, which would have set a precedent if people truly own their digital copies or not, the case was settled by Amazon for $150,000. Amazon also promised never to repeat its actions under the settlement, with a few conditions. They'll still wipe an ebook if the consumer agrees to have it wiped, if the consumer refused to pay, if it's necessary to protect users from malicious code, or if a regulatory body orders it. So if a government wants to ban a certain work, such as when New Zealand banned Jordan Peterson's book 12 Rules for Life, Amazon will happily comply in removing legally purchased copies from people's libraries. And even if we're not talking about books that you've already purchased, Amazon has banned several books on their platform. As far as can be told, if you legally purchase something, the retailer has no control over it. The problem is that digital distributors such as Amazon keep acting as if they have control over it. Shows you purchase on Amazon Prime cannot be downloaded on your computer, at least not anymore. You must be connected to the internet to watch what you legally purchased. The only way to get around this restriction is to use a screen capture software. I can't sell what I buy off of Amazon Prime to other people, even other users of Amazon Prime. After a brief grace period, I can't even resell it to Amazon. Keep in mind, in many cases, the physical DVD, where I can do all of these things, costs the same, or even less than the Amazon Prime version. There's an argument that what these digital distributors do is to prevent piracy, and they are well within their rights to create measures to make piracy as difficult as possible. While it's not illegal to rip and burn DVDs for your own personal use, it's not illegal for companies to add copy protection that make it impossible for modern DVD rippers to do just that. That being said, we're in a very strange crossroads. Places like iTunes and Steam were originally created to curb piracy. However, if I were to illegally torrent the software instead of buying it legally, I would have far more control over what I've obtained. For starters, a movie downloaded illegally off the internet can be viewed without an internet connection. And I suppose we should talk about the most pressing question when it comes to digital distributors. As big as Amazon, Apple, and Steam are, what happens when these companies fail and go out of business? That seems unlikely, but I didn't use the word if for a reason. Death of people or corporations is inevitable. Nothing lasts forever. And sooner or later, these companies will go out of business. It's strange, the things that we think that are futuristic, the internet, social media companies, online shopping, they're rarely future-proofed. Right now, the Epic Game Store seems to be challenging Steam's near monopoly on digital games. They've been chasing after many exclusive deals. Games that were once slated to release on Steam will no longer do so due to corporate dealings. Most infamously, the long-awaited Borderlands 3. This has led to a lot of worry when Epic Games bought out the company that made the the game Rocket League, Psyonix. Many people became worried that it would become an Epic exclusive, even though Epic Games has stated that the people who bought it on Steam would get consistent updates. Epic doesn't have to do that though. They can legally only give updates to the people who bought the game on their platform. It'd be easier to do that as well. However, the Epic Games Store has been unscrupulous in other ways. One notable controversy is when their launcher copied a Steam user data file called localconfig.vdf. This saves data such as your list of games, your friends list, and saved login tokens. It was never meant to be used by other programs or a third-party service. But what would a consumer of Epic Games do about such a consumer abuse? Are they going to abandon Epic Games and everything that they've ever purchased from them? It's not that Steam is perfect. Their near monopoly does allow them to charge hefty percentages to developers on every game sold, which can and does increase the price of several titles. And they have far more control over the consumer than they probably should. Legally speaking, you should be able to do things like trade in and sell off your Steam games. That is your property, and it's quite clear that they have the infrastructure that allows their customers to do that, without worrying about the issues that normally come with digital goods. All Steam has to do is just remove the game from your library, as you sell it or trade it in. However, it's against Steam's terms of service to sell games, or access to them, because it would absolutely destroy their business model. We're in a weird situation where these companies have a lot more power and a lot of control, more than they reasonably should. But if they should ever fail, we are going to be in a much worse situation. Valve has stated that in the unlikely event that they go out of business, you will be able to access all of your Steam games. They'll release a special kind of code that will remove the requirement to have a Steam account to play your games. There are many problems with this solution. Failure is a strange thing, and it could take many forms. It could happen so suddenly, where they won't get a chance to implement this code, or it can happen so gradually that they enter a catch-22, where entering this code would hurt their currently failing business model, so they keep putting it off more and more, until they're no longer able to do so. How can a company that's going out of business update their services that they most likely can't afford to keep running? People who have had always online requirements have attempted to have release switches, and each and every time, they failed. Generally speaking, when you're in the position when a release switch is required, you're not in the position to release it. When you're in a position when you could use a release switch, doing so would be detrimental to your business venture. So, if you will, allow me to predict the future if we go down this path. If Valve were to go bankrupt, suddenly or not, they either wouldn't want to use this release switch, or they wouldn't be able to. And one day, their servers would just no longer go online. Here's what could potentially happen. Hopefully you were logged into your account, as getting around Steam's password system would be a bit of a challenge. You would still be able to play the games that you had downloaded, but anything else that you purchased, you would not be able to access. They'd be on servers that have been shut down and sold. Some developers would probably want to give people who had purchased their products another copy, so that they could play what they legally purchased. However, most of them would probably want some kind of proof of purchase. If you've had a receipt from that game that you bought 5 years ago, excellent! If not, good luck getting that proof from your Steam account that you can no longer access. In this scenario, you can't sue anyone. No class action lawsuit, no personal lawsuit. Who are you going to sue? It's not illegal to run out of business. No one person had done anything malicious. It was just an incredible lack of foresight. So 90 million monthly users who have bought products totaling in the billions of dollars have just vanished. A lot of value is just stripped right from the economy. Thousands of games would simply disappear from existence. In this modern day and age, there are a lot of video games that have simply never found their way into physical form. It took something even as big as Minecraft years and years before you could buy it in a physical form. Physical media in general is largely on the way out as digital distributors and streaming services take us further and further away. A lot of it is for the sake of convenience. Why would you buy a $20 CD when you could buy the 2 songs that you wanted from it for 99 cents each? People say that a second video game crash couldn't possibly happen, but if Steam goes off the grid, it's safe to say that that would easily create one, the biggest one that we've ever seen. Some people might be able to hack into the Steam client and render it playable, but that's a minor solution that not all of its users are going to be able to do. That's another paradox when it comes to digital distributors. They appeal to the people who can't, or don't want to do the more hardcore work of finding less restrictive goods. And I understand that many of you may not be interested in Steam or video games in general, but you have to keep in mind, it only needs to take one of these big websites to go out of business, and the things that people legally purchase from them to become inaccessible, to create a massive consumer crash. All it takes is one, and the mainstream would be turned off from digital media. People would have seen the wizard behind the curtain. When people stop buying things from a billion-dollar industry, that generally leads to recession. It will become disastrous when something like this happens. It's a time bomb that will go off if proper precautions are not made, like now. Let's get out of the realm of speculation and go back into our modern day. Have you tried deleting your Apple, your Steam, or your Amazon accounts? I wouldn't imagine that you would have, because that'd be a very foolish thing to do. If you leave their platform, then you lose literally everything that you purchased from them. While they aren't as ban-happy as Twitter or Facebook, this does pose a very frightening affect. The longer that you have an account, the more that you're intertwined with it, and the harder it is to get out. Not that you can actually cancel your Amazon account yourself. The methods to do so are very hidden on their website, and it can actually only be done on your end after having a conversation with an Amazon employee. Once a site like Amazon has you, it's more likely than not that they have you forever, and that might not be a good thing. Digital distributors thus far have not been very ban happy, which is a good thing. Could you imagine if Amazon decided to get political? If they didn't like your speech and threatened to delete your account and everything that you've ever purchased from them? Right now, Amazon is only focused on banning books and not people. Some people have digital goods totaling in the thousands of dollars through iTunes Music, through Amazon Prime purchases, through Steam games, and a loss of that would be absolutely devastating. Blocking your account is not illegal, but removing all of your digital goods from you most likely is. It's the difference between being banned from a store and the store owner deciding to take back everything that you've ever purchased from them. However, these digital storefronts have shown that they do have the means to do something like that. Just because shooting me is illegal doesn't mean that I want someone aiming a gun at me. And right now, Amazon, Steam, iTunes, they're all aiming a gun at their consumers. And this is especially worrying because bugs have been known to crop up. And all of what I said doesn't just apply to digital goods anymore. You see, companies like Apple continually make their real-world devices less user-friendly, whether by intention or by accident. Did you know that taking your MacBook to a local repairer or anyone that's in an Apple store could render the thing inoperative? They have a special Apple T2 chip, which requires certain tools to repair, and those tools are secret software owned by Apple. This is required to repair the display, the logic board, the touch bar, the keyboard, the battery, the trackpad, and the speakers. The company released an update that managed to brick iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus units that had their screen replaced with third-party components. It is completely within their rights as a company to change their software to become more user-unfriendly. Any tech company is allowed to do this. It's just as legal as removing a headphone jack. After all, it's not illegal for you personally to jailbreak your phone and escape these malicious updates. And it would be very, very hard to make a law that made it illegal for companies to update things that you had already purchased. Think how that would affect MMOs like World of Warcraft, if the people behind the game could never ever update what people legally purchased from them. It just appears that tech companies are one of the few industries that seems to be actively at war with its consumers, and it is definitely unlikely to become illegal. Think of a more benevolent usage of this functionality. Updates like these also tend to come along to prevent malicious code, or to patch holes in security leaks, and the people who aren't likely to know how to jailbreak their phones are the kind of people who would most likely need those kind of benevolent updates. And think of something like an MMO, like World of Warcraft. It would be very, very strange to ask them to never update something that people have already legally purchased. If you want to prevent this kind of thing from happening, all you need to do is go to a competitor that's more trustworthy, and won't try to break your devices when you don't play by their rules. It's strange that a company, which once ran an ad about fighting against a 1984 dystopian future, has decided that they want to become in the possession of that dystopian government. Not that they're the only ones. Amazon and Google have released digital assistants, Echo and Home respectively. These devices are always listening. After all, they have to be to function properly. Their wake words can be set at any time. Both companies have filed patent applications for algorithms that let their devices monitor more of what users say and do. The information obtained could be used to identify a person's desires or interests, which could be mined for product recommendations. Google outlines how audio and visual signals can be used to determine a speaker's mood or medical condition. Both companies have stated that privacy is of a very high concern to them. Unfortunately, as we've established in the Facebook episode, it's not up to the company what happens to your data. The government can subpoena anything that they save. It must be understood that these companies are not benevolent, nor should they be expected to be. The only thing that a company should be expected to do is make a product that they advertise, and to make as much money as they possibly could. Even if a company could be considered benevolent, hacking attempts are made all the time. It'd be really bad if, say, a foreign government got access to all of this information, now wouldn't it? It's not like companies haven't already been malicious towards their consumers. In 2018, the California Farmers Lobbying Group signed away farmers' rights to access or modify the source code of any farm equipment or software that they owned. Because of this, farmers cannot change engine settings, retrofit old equipment, or even modify their tractors to meet new environmental standards. They have to get specialty repairs by the company that owns the software. It could take days for a repairer to get them, in an industry where every day is vital. If there's a group of people that you do not want to mess with, I would assume they would have to be farmers. These are the people who grow the food that we need to live, that our livestock needs to live, and food that becomes a valuable export. If tech companies are willing to exploit one of the most important jobs out there, as long as humans still have the need to eat, what do you think that says about the rest of us? I personally don't think the digital distributors are going to want to censor us like Facebook or Twitter. I think what they're going to do is what we're more used to big corporations doing. They're going to become increasingly user hostile, make things a lot more difficult for the user to do what they want to do, and try to erode more and more consumer rights. And they'll have leverage too. When it comes to a traditional brick-and-mortar store like Walmart, if you find what they're doing reprehensible, you could just shop somewhere else. However, if you were to leave to Amazon Prime or Steam, you would have to leave everything that you ever bought from them. And there generally isn't much competition. There really isn't another service like Amazon Prime at present. And any competitors that do exist have the same issues. And the longer that you use these services, the harder that it becomes to leave them. The harder that it becomes to leave them, the more power that they have over you, the consumer.